today is the 6th day of ceasefire violation that has been reported. The 6th night actually along the line of control. Unprovoked small arms firing has been reported from the Pakistani side across the line of control, and for the first time this is across international borders, and that is very, very concerning. This is the biggest escalation that we are seeing between the tension between India and Pakistan.
That's right. In fact, Indian Army troops responded appropriately. Major ceasefire violation and firing at international border. Besides, last night as well, Pakistan Army violated ceasefire and fired at Nowshera, Sunderbani and Akhnoor sector. And today, of course, it was across the LOC in Baramulla and Kupwara districts, as well as across the international border in Pargawal sector. To know more on this, we'll go straight across to Shiv Arur, who's joining us from Kashmir. Shiv, steady escalation by Pakistan. They've targeted international border now. How has India responded? India is, of course, getting ready to act, but what do you think are the implications of these repeated provocations?
This definitely constitutes an escalation, expanding the scope of hostilities from ceasefire violations to the international border. Is rare. It hardly ever happens, and it shows that there is a very specific effort by Pakistan to widen the scope of this escalation and tensions on the line of control into the international border. There are very many implications here, because here you've got targeted ceasefire violations over the last 5 days that have been taking place at Pakistan army posts. But when you fire across the international border, it's not never happened before. It has, but it's extremely rare. And in the context of what's happening now, it is an escalation. You're firing into the Jammu plains. There are many civilian areas. This is an area right below the demarcation of the line of control, where that actually starts in the Jammu area. Pakistan, it should be said, does not consider this part of the international border as an international border. They consider it a working boundary. They basically treat it like the line of control. It's very much part of the entire bilateral issue that India and Pakistan currently have. Be that as it may, for India it's the international border, and therefore it constitutes a big violation. As you reported, Baramulla, Kupwara, Sunderbani, Nowshera and a couple of other sectors are seeing escalations of this kind. I was at the line of control in Baramulla yesterday, where we reported on some of those ceasefire violations, obviously with due permission from the Indian Army. But this escalation clearly means that there is a deliberate and organized attempt to try and trigger some kind of a response from the Indian Army, because taking things from the line of control, where things are far more messy, firing happens on a fairly regular basis, even though there ironically is a ceasefire agreement since 2021, and these violations actually constitute the biggest violations since that agreement in 2021, 5 years ago. Firing at the IB is a completely separate dynamic. There is a certain sanctity to the international border. It is generally held sacrosanct. Firing has happened, but like I said, it's extremely rare, and in the aftermath and the backdrop of Pahalgam and the current escalation by the Pakistan Army, this is a very, very big escalation.
Shiv, of course, this kind of escalation we haven't seen before, and Nazir joining us to get us a sense of. Nazir, of course, there's a change of guard. It is Lieutenant General Sharma who is going to be taking charge. Take us through also, when we talk about this, really comes at a time when the Prime Minister has given full freedom to the forces to decide the targets, the timing, as well as the mode, that they are going to be perhaps in, as far as the targets, the timing and the tactics are concerned for India's response. And of course, take us through the kind of preparations that we are seeing from the Indian side.
Well, Indian Army is always prepared for any eventuality, more so along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir. Whenever, because they are all battle ready. They are always guarding the line of control 24/7. And it's not something new. And whenever there has been any eventuality, Army has decisively responded. Be it, a surgical strike after Uri attack in 2016 or post-Pulwama attack in 2019, Army has always been ready to deal with any eventuality. Having said that, when we talk about, she was talking about ceasefire violations. And effectively, if you see ceasefire violation is over, this ceasefire in spirit is over the day Pahalgam attack took place. Let me remind our viewer, when the ceasefire agreement was renewed by India and Pakistan Army on 25th of February 2021. There were three important elements of it. Number one, there would not be these border action teams and beheading of the soldiers from both sides. Pakistan will not allow any larger terror group to infiltrate into Jammu and Kashmir. And they will not allow any major terror strike or the massacre. These were three important things which formed the bedrock of that renewal of the ceasefire agreement between India and Pakistan. Apparently, all the three have been violated. And clearly, we see for last 5 days, 6 days now, ceasefire violations taking place. Army has effectively, responded to that ceasefire violation. As she was mentioning, right, it started from the line of control, first from Para, now going right up to Pargawal in Jammu on the international border. And we have seen whenever there was, escalation, where there was tension, Pakistan has often tried to attack in the international border, while we see population living there. They are getting dispersed. They are losing their farming land. They are suffering a great deal. So it is the common people who are in Jammu region, because they live near the borders, and it's a plain area in those areas. They suffer a great deal, and we have seen it whenever the ceasefire was violated. They bear the worst brunt of that ceasefire violation. And we have seen in the border areas, people are really, fearing something horrible to happen. For last 4 years, people have lived in peace along the line of control and borders because of the ceasefire was intact. Now people are really, really fearful. I have been watching for last 1 week. There's almost 60 to 70% drop in traffic. You don't see the traffic jam in Srinagar city at all. You see highways as if highways are deserted. The places where it would take you 4 hours, it is just taking you 2 hours, because that is good. Most of the traffic appears literally has disappeared. So clearly people are fearing something horrible is going to happen. As India clearly is ready for any eventuality, our Prime Minister has given free hand to armed force to decide the timing and the way they are going to act against the adversaries who are behind terror attack in Pahalgam.
Right. And also, let me go back to Shiv now. Shiv, India, of course, has not given any indication of what it plans to do next. Of course, high-level meetings are taking place. There is uncertainty on that front. This must certainly be creating panic as far as the Pakistan side is concerned. But take us through, when the move could be. Of course, the details of the move may not be clear. It could be a suspense. But if you could take us through what India plans to do next and the uncertainty on that front.
The uncertainty is perhaps the strongest thing as far as India is concerned right now, because, without putting its plans into motion, Pakistan has already had a seizure of anxiety day on day over what this next big move is going to be. There is a sort of dar ka mahal in Pakistan, and I'm not being facetious. This is genuinely the case. You've seen their defense minister and other ministers make all sorts of wild claims of preparedness, in the Pakistan army. They are, nervously violating the ceasefire day on day, showing that they're trying to trigger, clarity and a response from the Indian military side. But, on NDTV, we will never, of course, comment on timing, mode, targets or anything of that kind of an operational nature, because this is the sensitivity of this story is of the highest level. We don't even claim to, possess such information, because these are, of the highest level of classification between the Prime Minister, the service chiefs, the Chief of Defence Staff, the Defence Minister, the National Security Advisor and the armed forces. So as far as timing, mode, targets are concerned, like the Prime Minister said to them yesterday, they have the full operational freedom to decide. What we do is only project the armed forces, their training, their ethos, the precedents that they themselves have set in the past has led to a huge amount of ambiguity. There is a strategic ambiguity that is wearing down Pakistan. It is exhausting Pakistan at the strategic level, which I think is a very deliberate move by India. leave them in the dark, make absolutely no indications of what things are really about. The Prime Minister himself has, issued and enunciated his political directive through a couple of speeches, his Mann Ki Baat, and now left it to the operational freedom of the armed forces. That basically means now the soldiers have, the trigger finger and can do precisely what they want. It's of course never that simple. They've shared their plans already with the Prime Minister. India's options are on the table at the highest level. There's a Cabinet Committee on Security meeting later today where some of this will actually come up. But this is basically a wait and watch game right now, and it is clearly a time and place of India's choosing.
Right, of course, with the freedom given to the armed forces, of course, Shiv, let's just also go across to Nazir. Nazir, when we talk about the kind of pattern that we're seeing over the last 6 nights, this doesn't seem to be random attacks that are taking place. And of course, when we're talking about the targets, now they're targeting areas that are going towards Jammu as well.
Well, it's essentially what she was talking about. It's war of nerves before guns will actually start talking. This type of ceasefire violations are not new along the line of control so long they are contained. So far, army, both sides are using small arms, not the artillery. So that we have to see if that started, if it reached that point. But because it's, as I said, it is war of nerves so far. And in military, strategy, it's always you have to take your adversary by surprise. And they act accordingly, whether it was Balakot strikes or it was surgical strike. Our army took the Pakistani side by surprise. Then they reacted after our army had entered their airspace, their area. So these ceasefire violations are indication that after Pulwama attack, the calm, that too a deceptive calm along the line of control is completely broken. Now it is spreading to the international border as well. As I said earlier, along the international border in Jammu region, large population is living. Even the Jammu city is not far away from the international border or the railroad. So that remains always a challenge whenever there's. And I have seen in several times, large number of people had to migrate from their homes whenever there was ceasefire violation along the international border in Jammu, be it Kutwa, be it Samba, or be it Jammu, RS4, etc. So these are the areas where normally BSF has tried to maintain calm, and they have been in touch with their counterpart of rangers from Pakistan. Even army along the line of control has tried several times in the past, in last few months, held these flag meetings with the Pakistani counterpart. Brigadier level officers meetings were held to ensure that there's some stability along the line of control. So because army wanted to maintain this ceasefire since February 2021, when the ceasefire was renewed between India and Pakistan, we have seen worse times along the line of control when the thousands of people had to flee from their homes. Because what this does, it is actually killing not only destroying the homes, it is killing the livelihood. People cannot go to their farming. It is actually those who live near the borders bear the brunt of these violations. And we have seen this ceasefire violation. The area is spreading from North Kashmir to the Pir Panjal, Pooch Rajouri, and now right up to Pargawal international border in Jammu.